All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, the Golden State continues to battle at least 5 devastating wildfires. Tearing through dozens of communities, yet authorities are facing another troubling challenge as well: crime. Now, a man wandering around the Woodland Hills area with a blowtorch was arrested by law enforcement in connection with the Kenneth Fire, which has now scorched roughly 1,000 acres.
For more on this, let's welcome in Detective Sergeant of the Danbury Police Department and past president of the Connecticut Fraternal Order of Police, John Krupinski, along with retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
John, let me start with you. What's your reaction to the report of a homeless man arrested for suspected arson? These fires, there was no lightning in the area, so it does look like a pretty good object here to focus on him and maybe others. But what are your thoughts?
Well, it's not shocking coming out of California. Again, you're talking about a state with legislators, a governor, prosecutors, where law and order has not been their first priority. So it's not really shocking. It's very unfortunate to these people that live there. They have enough natural disasters and fires. They certainly don't need homeless people out there setting more fires.
Yeah, the National Guard has also been deployed in California to help emergency services as well, and also just to curb the looting that has started since the wildfire chaos. I spoke to people over there who said they saw cars of people just coming in at once, jumping out, kind of doing a flash mob of looting of people's houses. So, Bobby, what's your reaction to that? How can that be stopped?
Well, unfortunately, my reaction is not one of surprise, because this happens at a lot of natural disasters. We saw it at Katrina. We saw it, we do see this at natural disasters. When people are at their most vulnerable, the criminal element really does take over. The criminal element is very adaptable in our society, and they do exploit any kind of weakness or any kind of situation. The good thing here in California is that we recently changed our district attorney and voted out the George Soros-funded George Gascon. And we put in a new district attorney, and he actually has come out with some very strong language saying that looters will be handled to the fullest extent of the law. And, this is statements coming from a prosecutor that we're not used to here in Los Angeles. It's strong statements. Hopefully they follow through on it. Hopefully he's telling the truth and that these people will be dealt with. The situation of the homeless guy, remember that police are so strapped with doing other things. Every time they have to respond to a looting call, it takes them away from serving the public in other capacities. The looter that we were talking about, he was actually detained by citizens doing, their own civic duties, and they detained this guy, held him down. I think they even restrained him with zip ties or something until the police were able to get there. So people are taking these things into their own hands. The district attorney has promised that these people will be held to, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Hopefully he follows through on that. So times may be changing here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, John, California officials are now enacting a curfew as well. How will this help this situation?
Well, it's certainly going to help. Here's the problem that you have in California. In California, they have conditioned their criminals over the years. And I agree with my colleague. We have some new people in place, new prosecutors that are actually going to enforce the law. But the problem is, for the last 5 years or more, criminals have been conditioned to looting. You go back from 2020 on, and what you saw were criminals going in stores, stealing in flash mobs, just like you're seeing now, stealing under 950, and they weren't arrested or prosecuted. So it's very difficult. It's going to take a little bit of time to regain law and order in California. Let's hope that it's done very quickly, because people are vulnerable at this point.
At this point, another term for Gavin Newsom isn't looking too good at this point, yet he tried to start the new year by curbing crime, which is always a good idea, by putting forth legislation and enforcement actions. For example, he extended the California Highway Patrol operations. Bobby, do you think this is too little, too late for the governor?
Yeah, I actually do. I think that not only has he failed, in the law enforcement arena in providing the police with the proper, encouragement and support, he's failed the people of California in many, many different ways. In particular, not providing the proper amount of water. So to have basic public safety. So there's going to become a reckoning, and you're seeing that already. He's kind of throwing the mayor under the bus. The mayor's throwing the fire chief under the bus. So the Democrats are eating their own out here in California, which is fine with me. But yeah, I think you're exactly right, Tom. I think it's a lot too little, a lot too late, and we're seeing the results of not years but decades of failed policies here in California. They're not cutting back the brush. They're not keeping those fire lanes clear. They're not providing, enough firefighters. Many of them got laid off or quit, during the mandatory COVID vaccines. And so we're seeing the results of decades of failed Democratic policies here in California.
Unfortunately, we do have to leave it there, gentlemen, but I appreciate your input today. John Krupinski, Bobby Chacon, always a pleasure to have you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, the wildfires have caused at least